Welcome to this week's broadcast from New Smyrna Christian Church. I am the pastor of New Smyrna, and my name is Reginald Servant, and I'm glad that you tuned in to today's broadcast. We hope and pray that this broadcast will enrich you spiritually and help you in your spiritual walk with the Lord on a day-to-day basis. And on today, we want to talk about the subject responding to rejection. Responding to rejection, because most of us have experienced some rejection from someone in our lives. And if you live long enough, you will experience rejection. And so we want to talk about this subject of responding to rejection on today. And when we look at the definition of rejection, rejection can be defined as not accepted by someone. It can also be defined as to be dismissed by someone because we don't measure up to their standards. It can also be defined as to not be desired by someone we desire. And it can also be defined as to not be chosen by someone of whom we've chosen. And when we look at the word rejection, we also need to consider some of the ways in which we can be rejected. Some of us, we've been rejected in the area of our employment. We've either tried to obtain a certain job with a company, or we tried to obtain a promotion on our jobs, and for whatever reason, someone else got it, and it left us feeling a little rejected. Another way that we can be rejected is in the area of friends. We may have a desire to be a friend with someone, but that person doesn't desire to be friends with us the way we desire to be friends with him or her. Another way that we can experience rejection is in the area of our families. We may have a need to be close to a family member, but for some reason that family member has chosen to be distant from us. And as a result, it has left us feeling rejected. Another way in which we can feel rejected is in the area of relationships. Maybe we desire to be in a relationship with a certain person, but the feelings were not mutual. The person did not feel about us the way we felt about him or her. And as a result, there was some sort of a breakup which left us feeling rejected. But don't let the breakups cause you to have a breakdown, because you can bounce back when you are rejected in life. When you feel as though you don't meet someone's standards, it is not the end of the world, because God's got somebody out there for you who won't reject you. And so don't let rejection cause you to feel as though life is meaningless. Not everyone is going to love you. You'll find out in life that there will be times when you will desire certain people, but the person won't desire you for whatever reason. There will be times in your life when you will like someone, but the person won't like you the way you like them. And this is all a part of life. I mean, I like milk, but milk doesn't like me. I like ice cream, but ice cream doesn't like me. So not everybody that you like is going to like you. Why are we rejected in life by people? We are rejected sometimes because there's something about us that certain people just don't like. And that happens. Sometimes we're rejected by others because of the color of our skin. It may be also be because of the shading of our skin. Some of us, we're darker skinned, more darker skinned than others, and some people prefer lighter skinned people. Some people prefer darker skinned people. And as a result, many people are rejected because of the color of our skin. Sometimes black people are rejected by white people because they're black. Sometimes white people are rejected by black people because they're white. These are some of the reasons why we are rejected. Another reason why we are rejected sometimes is because we're just not somebody's type of person. You know, we're just not their type. And therefore rejection can occur. Sometimes we're rejected by people because people don't like the way we talk. They don't like the way our voices sound. There are people today who won't listen to this broadcast because they don't like the way my voice sounds. And that's okay. There will also be times when we will find ourselves rejected because certain people will feel as though we're not as smart as they are, and therefore they will reject us because they feel they need someone who is smarter than we are. And that's all right. It's okay, because even Jesus was rejected. Not everybody liked Jesus. Not everybody loved Jesus. And if Jesus was rejected, then what about you and me? Jesus knew the feeling of being rejected. Jesus was rejected by his own family. The Bible tells us in St. John chapter 1 verse 11 that he came to his own family, and his family rejected him because of who he is, the Son of God, the Messiah, the Christ. And so Jesus' own family even rejected him. And Jesus said that no servant is greater than his master. In St. John chapter 15, verse 20, he says, if the master is rejected, then so will his servants be. And Peter the apostle tells us in today's text that Jesus was rejected. Peter tells us in the book of Acts chapter 4 verses 5 through 12 that Jesus was rejected. Acts chapter 4 verses 5 through 12 tells us that when Peter and John were released from jail, they were questioned by the Jewish religious authorities as to who gave them the power to heal a man of whom had been paralyzed from birth. And they asked Peter and John that question because they felt they were in control in Jerusalem. And if Peter and John were going to heal someone, then they needed to first get permission from the Jewish religious leaders, because those Jewish religious leaders felt like they were in control. And you will discover that that is another reason why you will be rejected in life, is because people can't control you. As long as some people can control what you do and control what you say, and then they will continue to not reject you. But the minute you stand up to them, then you will discover that some people will reject you because some people have a need to control other people. And so the Jewish religious leaders asked Peter and John, who gave you the authority to heal this paralyzed man? And Peter said to the Jewish religious leaders, it was Jesus. Jesus gave us the authority. Jesus gave us the power. You remember Jesus. He was the one that you hung up on the cross at Calvary. You remember Jesus. Jesus was the one you rejected. Well, that same Jesus was raised from the dead early that Sunday morning with all power in his hands. And Peter said to them, Jesus is the stone that the builders rejected, and God has made him the head of the corner. And so when you look at a building, a brick building especially, a brick building always has a main brick in it that holds up the building, and that brick is normally on the corner at the bottom. Peter tells them here that Jesus was that main brick that holds up the building, which is religion and a relationship with God. And that if that cornerstone, who is Jesus, is removed, then the building itself cannot stand. And so Jesus was the brick that the builders rejected, but God has made him to be the head of the cornerstone of the building. And so the Bible lets us know that Jesus was going to be rejected. Isaiah chapter 53, verse 3, it tells us that Jesus was despised. He would be hated and he would be rejected by men. So in Acts chapter 4, verse 12, Peter lets the Jewish religious leaders know that it was Jesus who healed this paralyzed man. It was the same Jesus that they had rejected. And if people would reject Jesus, the greatest man who has ever walked the face of this earth, what about you and me? If they rejected Jesus, they will certainly reject you and me. And so the question then today is, how are we to deal with rejection when we are rejected by people of whom we would like to have in our lives? How are we to deal with that rejection? Well, there are three ways. And first of all, with respect to dealing with rejection, we need to accept what God allows. When someone rejects us, we need to accept it as being a part of the will of God for us, because God knows who are the right people to be in your life, and God knows who are the wrong people to be in your life. And so if you want the right people to be in your life, when you are rejected, then just accept it as being the will of God. Romans chapter 8, verse 28 says, and we know that all things work together for the good of them who love the Lord, who are the called according to his purpose. When you are rejected by someone and that person has decided to not be a part of your life, you ought to just look at it as God's will and just know that it was not good for that person to be in your life. And God knows who should be in your life and who should not. For 1 John chapter 3, verse 20 says, God knows all things. God knows the secrets of men's hearts. God knows people's intentions. God knows people's intentions for you. God knows when people don't mean you any good. God knows when people have ill intentions for you. And when God sees that someone has an ill intention for you, God will cause that person to not want to be with you or around you when you are a child of God, because they don't mean you any good. And so when people reject you, trust God and accept it as being the will of God. Because not everybody is meant to walk together. As a pastor, now for some 33 years, I have seen many people walk in my life and walk out of my life. I cannot begin to count the number of people of whom have joined the churches where I pastored. And I pastored around 6 different churches in 33 years. And in those 33 years, I've seen quite a number of people join the church and leave the church. Some will join one Sunday and you never see them again. Some will join one Sunday and they'll stay 6 months. Some will stay a year. Some may even stay 6 years. And then they leave me for some reason. But when people leave me, I have learned to trust God, because I have learned that not everybody is meant to walk together through life. And not everybody is meant to walk with you through life. And so when you are rejected, accept what God allows. Then secondly, when you are rejected by people, count it a blessing. I said count it a blessing. Why? Because you never know when someone who was in your life meant to harm you. And God moved them out of your way before they could cause you any harm or misery. And therefore, when people reject you, count it a blessing. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 18, it says, in all things, give God thanks. And so when somebody rejects you, thank God for it. Thank God that they did not want to be your friend. Thank God that they did not want to be your boyfriend or your girlfriend. Thank God that they didn't want to marry you. Thank God for even family members who don't want to have anything to do with you. Because everybody doesn't mean you good. There are people in the world today who are not your friend, who will hurt you if they can. And even Jesus had enemies. And if you don't think you're going to have some enemies in life, you just keep on living. If you live long enough, you will discover that you're going to have some people who will hate you, who won't like you, and who will try to hurt you if they can. And certainly, you don't want your enemies that close to you. And so when people decide to reject you, count it a blessing. There are some people who will come into your life for a season, and then there are some people who will come into your life for no good reason. And those we don't need in our lives. And so the second reason then that we need to not be concerned about people rejecting us is because they don't mean us any good anyway. So count it a blessing. And then thirdly, on today, when people reject you, let go and let God. When people reject you, you pick up the broken pieces of your life and you move on without them, because you know that God has you in the palm of his hands, and God will give you the people in your life of whom you need. So pick up the pieces and move on and let go and let God. Jesus said in St. Matthew chapter 10, verse 14, Jesus said, when people reject you, Jesus said, shake the dust off your feet and keep on marching. Jesus said, shake off the dust and keep on going. And don't let the fact that someone has rejected you bother you, because you have no control over who will desire to be in your life and who won't desire to be in your life. And so don't allow anyone but Jesus to have that kind of power over your life where you get upset because they don't want to be in your life. If somebody chooses to not be in your life, Don't get upset about it. Don't worry about it. Turn it over to the hands of the Lord. Let go and let God and move on. And don't give people that much power over your life to where they can upset you, where they can make you feel hurt simply because they don't want to be in your life. Don't give anybody that kind of power over your life but Jesus. After all, no matter how hard you try, you cannot impress people enough to make people want to be a part of your life. No matter what you do, there is nothing you can do to make a person love you and like you if the person has decided they don't like you or they don't love you. There's no amount of money that you could spend on somebody to make the person love you. You can't buy love. I don't care how much money you spend on somebody. When the money is gone and when they spend that money on you and when it wears off, so will their feelings about you. And you'll find them drifting away from you because they were just hanging out with you because of your money. And you don't want that kind of love. You don't want the kind of love the way you have to buy friendship and buy family members. You want the love to be genuine between you and the persons in your life. So you have to, in order to deal with rejection, you have to love yourself more than you love being in a relationship with somebody else. Because if you love yourself more, then you won't set yourself up to be hurt by other people. But if you love being in a relationship more with someone than you love your own self, and that person decides to not be a part of your life, guess what? You're setting yourself up to get hurt. You have to love yourself first. You have to love yourself so much until you will not allow some person's decisions to not be in your life to hurt you. You got to love yourself more than that. You got to love yourself first. How much do you love you? And so when it comes to responding to rejection, accept what is the will of God for you, count it a blessing, and let go and let God. And understand in my close today that you have been accepted by the most important person in the world. And the most important person in the world who could ever accept you is Jesus. You've been accepted by Jesus Christ. And if you've been accepted by Jesus, then you've been accepted by the most important person who could ever accept you. So you've been accepted by Jesus, but that's not the question. The question is, have you accepted Jesus? Jesus has accepted you, but have you accepted him? How do you know Jesus has accepted you? Because Revelation chapter 3, verse 20, Jesus said, "Behold, I stand at the door of your heart, and I'm knocking, and I'm asking you to open the door so I can come in. And if you open the door, I'll come into your heart. I'll come into your life. I'll come into your mind. And I'll eat with you. And I'll fellowship with you. And I'll walk with you. And I'll talk with you. And I'll be a part of your life." Because Jesus said, "I've accepted you." But the question then again is, have you accepted him? And I hope you have accepted him. Because St. John chapter 14 verse 6 says, Jesus is the way. Jesus is the truth. Jesus is the life. And no man comes to the Father except through Jesus. You can't get to God except through Jesus. You can't be saved except through Jesus. You can't have your prayers heard except through Jesus. You can't get to heaven except through Jesus. You can't have the best life you could ever have except through Jesus. There's only one way to have what you need in life, and that is the love of the most important person in life, who is Jesus, and that is you must accept him as your Lord and Savior. Have you accepted Jesus today? If you've accepted him, then it doesn't matter who has rejected you. If you accepted Jesus, then you have the most important person you could ever have in your life. And I was brought up in the church listening to our elders say, can't nobody do you like Jesus. And so we thank you today for tuning in to today's broadcast. We pray that this broadcast has been a blessing to you. And always remember, Jesus loves you and we love you too.